the legendary Kira Davis. Kira, welcome to the show. You scared us there. We had like a minute to go. Didn't pick up the phone. You had me nervous. What's going on? Did you not want to come on? Were you mad at me or something?
Dan, don't you dare. I was recording my own podcast about the ridiculousness we're about to talk about, and I got carried away with it. So.
Where are you? Okay, that's cool. I know. I get into it sometime. By the way, promote your podcast, please. Just listen to yourself. It's a great podcast, isn't it? I love it. And you're on Locals, too, which I just found out, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
davisnation.locals.com. Locals is an awesome website. It's Dave Rubin's. Yep. And you can go there and get Kira Davis's content, and it's exclusive stuff there, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can chat. We can have conversations. My podcast, Just Listen to Yourself, which is available everywhere, is something that challenges people to dig into their talking points. Because we always say things that sound lovely on the surface, but you dig in and it's like, that doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever. So Davis Nation is a place where we can all talk together. We can all break down our talking points together. And you know what, Dan? I find that people are really hungry for that.
You know, they are. I mean, you and I, so let me just tell a quick story. By the way, that's her Locals account is davisnation.locals.com. Go there, subscribe today, do yourself a favor, and check out our podcast. Just listen to yourself. I had you on my podcast when I was still doing interviews on that show rather than here on the radio. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I got so much feedback. You know, everything happened last minute because there was some breaking news that day, and I was like, Kira, you got to come on. And it was one of the best interviews we ever did because of you, not because of me. The audience loved you, and there was this one, you're just so candid about stuff, and you're not afraid of, like, you know, these, you can't say that. You're not afraid of that at all. You had said to me at one point, you remember the story you told about the grocery store, how some lady, some like liberal white lady decided she was going to come up to your husband or something and like apologize to him or something because you.
I remember. That was a great interview. It really was. But yeah, my husband was he was in a home improvement store, and it was during the summer of Black Lives Matter, and there was a white lady just staring at him while he was looking at the plants, and he kept thinking, do I know this person? Why is she staring at me, and kind of following me around? And then finally she went up to him and she said, I just want to tell you, I'm sorry. And my husband, who was like the most unassuming person, you know, was like, oh, did she hit my car in the parking lot or something? And maybe she saw me come in and she's apologizing. So he was like, well, for what? And she said, well, I'm just sorry for my white privilege. And I want you to know that I'm so glad you're in our community. And I'm so glad that I hope you feel comfortable here. And he came home and told me that. And he was like, it made me the most uncomfortable, you know? It was the most uncomfortable thing that ever happened. And then he said,
Kira, the story is so cringe.
I know.
I've heard it and I'm cringing now. I'm sorry. Finish the story. Yeah, you get home. Go ahead.
Oh, no. You know, he said it wasn't until I got home that I thought, dang, I should have asked her to buy the plant I was looking at.
I remember that. And so many people email me like, gosh, it's just refreshing to have, you know, people have candid conversations and how candid you were. And I appreciate that. And it kind of brings me to this next topic here. You know, the endless race hustling in the United States that I don't see what good it does. If there's a legitimate story of some racially motivated attack, of course, that's news. We're a largely really great country, very accepting of people, and we should. You know, we should get exposed to, obviously. I mean, that's just, it's got nothing to do with race. It's everything to do with morality.
Right.
But the whip story, it seems to be so perfect for the left, right? With one exception. I'll get to that in a second. It's perfect for the left. And as people who are from a third world country, it's very poor. So there's a class warfare, you know, the left loves class warfare. There's an anti-law enforcement angle to it. You know, they were border patrol agents who happened to be white on horseback who had law enforcement uniforms on. So it fits two of the three boxes. And the third box it checks too. They happen to be black, immigrants from Haiti who are black. So, of course, they like identity politics and racial warfare. But the exception and why the story was strange is because it wasn't true. The story was, in fact, made up. Even the photographer saying, hey, I took the picture. This is misconstrued. That's not what happened. And I don't understand how we're ever going to. Do you think it's just that the media wants to do this, or is it just quick, simple political advantageousness where they see they can take a quick hit at law enforcement? Or is it more of a long-term racial division strategy where they really want the racial division because it helps the Democrats? I always get kind of confused on that.
I feel like it's layered, Dan. I think everything you said is true. It's both. It's political expediency, and we know that the left wing, the mainstream media, which is left-wing media, carries the water for Democrats. So they're going to run stories and angles that are going to help Democrat politics and politicians. So there's that angle to it. But here's the other thing that I sincerely believe. Most of the people in mainstream media are elitist, they're wealthy, they're highly educated, so they've come out of the bubbles of academia and they live on the coast. They feel guilty. They feel guilty about who they are and what they have earned, or in some cases not earned. And this is their way of assuaging that white guilt. Yes. Even people like Joy Reid, if we're going to call Larry Elder the blackface of white supremacy, then I'm going to tell Joy Reid that she has severe white guilt. It's a way of assuaging their own guilt for having the things they have. So if they can make people believe that they're on the side of righteousness, that they're the good rich people, that they're the good educated people, and then everybody else is bad, they don't have to feel so guilty about not really doing much to help other people, about living in their bubbles, about driving their fancy cars, about living behind their gates. All the things they hate about rich people, they are. So in order to make themselves feel better about it, they have to take this angle of, hey, I'm a social justice warrior, so it's okay for me to have these things because I'm one of the good ones.
You know, that's a brilliant analysis. We're talking to Kira Davis, host of Just Listen to Yourself, the podcast. It really, and I say that living now in the media ecosystem for the last 10 years of my life, but having had real jobs. I mean, I was a police officer, business owner, a federal agent. I worked for a living. I worked in a supermarket stocking shelves, and I've noticed this. There's not one media ecosystem. There's two, and it kind of feeds off what you just said. There's the people who have grown up in the media ecosystem, the Chris Cuomos of the world, and others who've never had a real job. They live in that bubble, and I agree with you. I don't think it's a white guilt. I think it's a privilege guilt. Like they understand their privilege and they don't like it. I agree. Your analysis is spot on. And therefore, they feel the need to make up for it by pointing out even phantom acts of racism everywhere else, because it's like, look what I'm doing. I'm earning my way into heaven here. And then there's the other side of the media ecosystem, people who actually worked for a living, who don't see the world that way because they actually lived in it. And, people like you and I who, go out and shop at Home Depot and worked and interacted with people in a business environment. You think that's right? When you've been in the media system, you've seen it, the ugly face of it too. You think that's right there?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a better description. It is a privilege issue. I definitely agree with that. I mean, let's look at what we've seen happening this week with the Gabrielle Petito case, right? Where all of a sudden, people like Joy Reid and Chris Cuomo were like, well, this is just racism. The fact that we cover these missing cases of beautiful white women, but we don't cover the other thousands of missing minorities. And it's like, you are the media,
Right.
You guys are the ones that cover. You guys make the decisions which story. Me and you, Dan, don't decide what goes on CNN. We don't decide what Rachel Maddow covers. We don't decide what Joy Reid covers on her show. She does. And so they didn't even, again, this is why I do my podcast, digging into your talking points. On the surface, that sounds like, hey, aren't I so good? I'm for social justice, and this is a real injustice. But you dig in, it's like, you guys are literally the only people that could highlight these stories. And you
like I said that on my show too. Like, wouldn't it be great if Joy Reid had a show on MSNBC where they could talk about missing black women? Like, oh, snap, she does have a show. Jim, I almost slipped there. I almost slipped again, Jim. I almost cursed. It's always with guests I like where it happened with Chip Roy. I said hit with an S in front of it on the air. Jim had to buzz out a whole 7 seconds. But I know.
Win.
Yeah, I know you can't do that FCC stuff. I did it once. Never again, I think. We'll see. With the interview, still got a few minutes left. But I think you're right. And here's another thing about it. Kira, another thing is you don't hear about black on black crime either. But you do hear about a white on black crime all the time, right? Even if there's not a racial motivator there. So that says to me that these liberal networks who do that, they're not pure at heart either. They know they're doing clickbait stuff and ratings, and they know they can add a racial element, whether it's there or not. White guy versus a black guy versus, it could have no racial element whatsoever. But when they see it can be clickbait, they do it. So it's so hypocritical for Joy Reid to call out, people for covering Gabby Petito while not covering the fact that they don't talk about Chicago and the hundreds of black men and women and babies killed every year. They don't talk about that at all.
Well, no, this was always my complaint. I mean, I think I told you in that interview that you talked about at the top of the show, the one that you and I first did. I think I might have talked about this there, that the reason I'm a conservative is because of black people. It's because I'm black, because I was serving my community, and I was watching all of these policies that I thought worked previously as a liberal. I was seeing how they played out in real time, and I realized that they didn't. And I realized that that this was a forgotten subset, that unless there was some kind of sort of quote, sexy angle behind what was happening in our communities, it didn't matter to the liberal elite who ran the media. And I'm looking at people who are desperate for help, who are desperate to succeed, who are desperate to excel and for opportunity. They want those things. It's not like they're lazy and sitting around and just satisfied with their lives. They want those things. But in order to have those things, we have to have an honest conversation about the cruelty that's happening in our own communities, among each other and among people doing it to us. But the mainstream media won't let us have those conversations because they don't serve their agenda. And that's, I think, what really upset me enough to start reexamining my politics was that I'm like, what am I about? Am I about just sort of screaming these platitudes at the top of my lungs, or am I about actually affecting real change? So the people, the talking heads on CNN enrage me because all they want to do is inflame tension, but they don't actually want any real solutions. They don't want to actually dig in to what's happening, not just in black communities across the country, but in all communities, how it affects us all. We don't have
I agree.
We don't have to do this. We don't have to. I
agree.
Like this.
And I gotta run, Kara. I want to get a promotion for your podcast again, but I think there's going to be a mass red pilling coming up of minority voters. I really do. You just can't continue to lie to them like this. It's not possible. These are smart people. They know they're being lied to. Kira Davis, host of Just Listen to Yourself, the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast, and go to Locals. DavisNation.locals.com. You can subscribe to Kira's content there. She's fantastic. You will not be disappointed. Kira, we hope to have you back. We'd love to have you guest host the show sometime, too, if you're down. We think you'd be great.
100%, Dan. You make the call.
All right, Kira. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, folks. Kira Davis. We'll be right back.